everybody, Ron Wildman in here on Middle Georgia Spotlight. Our guests, longtime BIB Commissioner, Elaine Lucas.
Good being here.
You're here, one reason, Black History Month coming up.
Yeah.
And you have the Martin Luther King
Right.
Jr. Commission.
Right. And what we're trying to do really, Ron, is we want to celebrate Black History Month. It started out as a week, so it's a month now. And we still celebrate all of the accomplishments, and we have the ceremonies and the festivities during February. But what we want to do through the Martin Luther King Commission is to make sure that the focus is throughout the year, that we celebrate accomplishments of folks in all races the entire year, but mainly focus on events that would celebrate or enhance the ideals and the life of Dr. King. And so during January, of course, there are the usual events. Of course, this year we were not able to have the march and all of that, but we did have a wreath laying ceremony.
Tell me about that.
Well, we decided that we were going to do something to kick this whole 2021 series of events off, because our focus is 365, celebrating Dr. King and his ideals the entire year. So we wanted to do something to remind people that even though we couldn't celebrate in the usual ways, we could do something. So we pulled together ministers from the community and representatives from different organizations, the NAACP, SCLC, A. Philip Randolph Institute. We had the Mentors Project, June O'Neill. We had all of those organizations, the Downtown Ministers Group, the Evangelical Ministers Alliance, and we all got together with the Martin Luther King Commission members, and we laid a wreath along with Mayor Miller joined us, Senator David Lucas, Judge Verda Colvin joined us as well, and we laid a wreath in Rosa Parks Square in honor of Dr. King and Rosa Parks and all of the other heroic folks who gave an awful lot for us to be able to have the freedoms that we have. And we want to make sure that people don't ever forget that there were a lot of people who contributed to building this country, and Black people, all different races and groups of people were a big part of building this country. But because Black citizens have generally been left out of history, it's like we never did anything at all. We want to make sure that our children know, and not just Black children, white folks need to know too, that there were great accomplishments by Black folks. And that way, I think people can learn to appreciate each other more.
That wreath laying ceremony was basically in lieu of the marches from all
Yes.
sections of our community. You know,
Yes.
I've covered that, maybe, if not all of them, most of them over the
Yeah.
years. And it was a big hole out of my life.
I know
Because each
it.
year,
I
you
know
look
it.
forward to different events. When you're in news,
Well, unfortunately, this year we had to err on the side of caution and health, because this virus is not playing. This thing is serious. It's taken many, many lives in our country. There are 400,000 people who have died in the United States. In our state, there are thousands who have died of the virus. And here in Macon, Georgia, there are many, many people who have passed away from the virus. So we wanted to make sure that people were safe, that we had a small group that could spread out, but we could celebrate and kick off the 2021 series of events.
and speaking of the virus, you're on the health board.
Right.
And also, it came to your house too, didn't it?
It did. My husband went to a funeral in Philadelphia, his uncle's funeral, and somewhere between here and Philadelphia and coming back, he got the virus. And he came home and he was really, really sick, listless, no energy, bad cough. And I ended up with it as well. And we had done so well. We were so careful. And we wore our mask everywhere. We stopped going a whole lot of places and everything. We're very cautious. But he brought the virus in and spent a week in the hospital. And after he was out of the hospital, David, my husband, he ended up having to go back into the hospital because there was a reaction to some of the treatment that he got for COVID. So basically, he spent 2 weeks in the hospital, and he got much of the treatment that former President Trump got, the remdesivir, and
was that good stuff? Did it work?
Well, it's supposed to be. It worked, but he is still now having to be real careful and use oxygen as needed because he had pneumonia, and so his lungs have to totally heal up. So for a few more weeks, he's going to have that oxygen. So I would say to anybody, it's not over. We're on our way. I think that in the next few weeks, we're going to see some improved systems of delivery
for the injections.
And I think things are going to get much, much better. But we still need to wear our mask. We still need to wash our hands on a regular basis. We still need to maintain that distance like we are right here. And we need to do those. We need to protect our children and our older folks, especially with pre-existing illnesses, because this thing is still around. It's getting more and more people are catching it, but the good thing is more and more people are recovering, but it still will kill you.
How did you recover? What did they use on you?
Well, I only had a cough, and I had fever and chills for a couple of days, and that was it. But I take vitamin supplements every day, a multivitamin, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc every day to keep my immune system strong. And so I continued doing that, plenty of juices. I, of course, quarantined for a couple of weeks, and I'm fine. Both of us are good. We're on our way to recovery, but we were fortunate.
He's at the legislature. Did it
The
hamper him there?
legislature went into session 2 weeks ago, and he is driving there for the session and back every day, which is his usual routine. But there are a number of the legislators who have tested positive and who had to leave the session and go back home and quarantine. I believe there are at least 10 of them in the House and the Senate who have become infected, and of course have to quarantine and go through the medicines depending on the severity of their infection.
You know, we were talking about Black History Month. What are some of the events, or what are we not doing or are doing in February?
Well, in February, there will be a lot of virtual events, a lot of things nationally, statewide, and locally that people can go live. They will go live on Facebook, and people can tune into those. There are always really great movies that spotlight blacks in history, performers, civil rights leaders. Of course, Dr. King, during the month of January, there are always movies like King and some others that are just really, really good to watch, to remind us of the things that he went through, the selfless things that he went through. All through this year, we're going to kind of play it by ear as far as the types of events that we can present. And once we get to a point where we feel like it's safe for people to gather in large groups, then we will start back with the gospel concerts, the parades, all of those kinds of things that will spotlight King's legacy, trips to museums, things like that. But until that time, I would suggest that people go on the Macon Bibb government site. There will be a list by month. Each month it will change and have a listing of the events, the movies, things that people can tap into and children can tap into as well to celebrate Black history and the works of Dr. King throughout the year. So we're going to adjust as the numbers dictate to us.
I remember years ago you mentioned the King movie. Much of that was shot here in Macon.
Yeah, it was. And I remember there's a church, Mount Olive, where I think they used a picture of the doors, and the doors are still there on that church, even though they've got a new church across the street. Those big, heavy doors were featured in that movie.
They remind me somewhat of the doors at the U.S. Capitol building.
Yes.
Yeah, I imagine you've told a lot of this on your radio program.
I have, and thank you for mentioning that. Ask Elaine. We've been on the air. We're going on 9 years.
My
now.
goodness.
We started out on 100.5, and when that station was no longer gospel oriented and changed ownership, then we were out for a year looking for a new home. And along came two owners who purchased WDDO, a historic station, and they called me and asked me if I would come on that station. So Ask Elaine airs live on WDDO. It's 9:80 a.m.
Live. That's a little precarious, isn't
on
it?
Wednesdays, each Wednesday from 3 to 4. And we just encourage people to tune in. And if people want to make comments on current events, on national events, state activities, on local events, and especially news items. And what I try to do is to give people more details than they get on the evening news. And that, it's just a quick little bit of the news. So you can't always include everything in the time that's allotted for you on the regular media. So on our program, Ask Elaine, we try to give more details. And since I'm an elected official, a member of the Macon Bibb Commission, I bring the actual agendas and go through what our government did. And people really love that. They love getting information from the inside. And so I just tell them, if I find out about it, I'm going to come tell you, because that's what you sent me there to do.
Well, 2020 was an exceptional election
year.
It was a year that I'm sure you talked about. First of all, you and the senator were up for re-election.
Right.
But neither one had opposition?
My husband did have opposition.
Oh, he did?
He did. He had opposition. He only beat his opponent he had 80% of the vote, only 80%.
And you were unopposed.
I did not have opposition, and I was just so pleased because that allowed me to work in the mayoral campaign, and I was able to work and assist David in his campaign and do voter registration, which is what I love doing.
Now, speaking of mayors, Mayor Miller has been in there for a few weeks now.
Right.
And he's had 3 or 4 things that made news.
Right.
Let's run down that list. The Warming Center, how do you feel about that?
The Warming Center is a wonderful, wonderful place. I went over when there was a news conference a few weeks ago, and we were briefed on what was going on. And so that's a no-brainer. This is something that a number of us have been concerned about for a long, long time. And we've done a whole lot of talk, and we've tried to pull together bits and pieces of things that would assist our homeless and those folks who are down on their luck, families who are getting put out, families who have nowhere to go. And this has just been the answer to a lot of folks' prayers. And I salute the mayor and all of the agencies that have pulled together, not only people, but money. And you've had churches that have donated. Even the students from my school have donated cases of water to the warming center. And so it's one of the most wonderful things that we could have in our community. You know, all these Christians that walk around saying, you know, sprouting off Bible verses and stuff and who aren't doing anything. This is a way to
You
put
said that,
faith.
not me.
Oh, I said it and I meant it. You know, you gotta, you know, walk the walk. Can't just talk the talk, because that does not impress anybody. So if you participate and volunteer at a place like the Warming Center, you are actually helping people. Now, some other things that I think are going to be that are going to generate a good bit of discussion would be the moratoriums that the mayor has instituted on new liquor licenses and also on pawn shops. And so it's, I think, for 6 months, and it's to give people an opportunity to express their opinion on it.
So what's your opinion of it?
Well, I think with the liquor stores, I think we've got enough places that people can get alcohol. I really do. And in some portions of the district that I represent and Commissioner Watkins, it's flooded. I mean, every corner has a store where you can buy alcohol, and you say enough is enough already. How much can people possibly consume? Now, the other part of it is people have a right to a legitimate business, but all the rest of us also have a right to not be flooded in poor communities too. That's the big thing in the areas where people can least afford all of this stuff, and which encourages the use of alcohol and other things that these things are located, they're concentrated in those areas. And so I think that's a good concern that's being responded to by the moratorium. And then on pawn shops, I think there's maybe illegal kinds of things that may be unearthed with some of those kinds.
So you're
of
with the mayor
things.
on this?
I am. I
Good.
agree, and I voted yes on both of those. And there's some new department heads. There's a new director. Our friend Dr. Henry Ficklin was approved for head of community development, which is a new department. And then also there's someone who's been approved for small business. Sharice Stevens. And I think certainly small businesses need to be supported. And so far, I've supported all of the things that the mayor has come up with.
His other big thing was cleaning up the community.
Right.
Litter,
Right.
trash.
Right. And anybody who wants to help with cleaning up, because we've tried neighborhood groups, we've tried neighborhood cleanups, we've tried everything, but what we've got to do too is to work with Keep Making Beer Beautiful and other entities and get with our citizens who want to help clean up the communities. And we've got to make sure that we educate our children about not throwing trash all over. Because you've seen parents drive by in their car and then they're throwing trash out, and the children are doing it too. So it's education, but it's also all of us working together to clean up Macon. Macon does have some areas where folks are bringing their trash from their house or their small job that they're doing, construction job or carpet replacement or whatever, and they're dumping it in Unionville, or they're dumping it in Fort Hill or somewhere else. They're coming late at night and they're dumping out their stuff. And so we've got to put a stop to that. So I support any efforts by anybody in cleaning up, making, because we don't have to have as much trash out, but our folks have got to stop throwing stuff out too, because people can't keep up. You can't keep up with all of the trash unless citizens start being very, very much aware of what they're doing and whether they're contributing to the trash or not.
Your chosen profession was education.
Yes.
And you retired from the bib system, but you didn't get out of education.
No. I was my last assignment in the school system was counselor and graduation coach. And during that time, I saw so many students who just couldn't hang on. They were trying, some were young moms, some were young men who had health issues, parents had health issues, some lost parents. And there were just a lot of traumatic things happening to students that forced them to just leave school alone. And then, of course, there were some educators who just didn't encourage students. They actually discouraged some students from being in school. They contributed to the problem. Not a whole lot of them, but just enough. So after I retired, I decided to start a program that would allow high school dropouts to come back into an accredited program and earn their high school diploma by completing the remaining courses that they needed. And so we are accredited. We've been in operation, EL High School Academy. We've been in operation for 10 years. And we've graduated well over 1,000 students with their high school diplomas. And if you could be there, and people can see some clips and some pictures of our graduations by going to our Facebook page, EL High School Academy, Facebook, and see the looks on these folks' faces. And we take students from 16 up. So we have folks in their teens, late teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. We have folks of all ages. We have black, white, we have Hispanic. Many in our community from the Hispanic community have enrolled and gained earned their high school diploma as a part of their DACA requirements. And so many of our students, when they graduate, they are able to enter a four-year school. They're able to go to a technical school. They're able to get a job, advance on their job, keep their job. And then many of our older, more mature students simply want to prove to themselves that they can do it. And some others have been required to get a diploma, have been with a company for years and years, and then they say, well, we're changing the requirements. You got to have a high school diploma. So they come to us. They work through all of the courses that they need. They get their high school diploma, and the look on their face. For those folks who gain a high school diploma, it instantly adds the possibility of $500,000 more in earnings through your lifetime.
My.
So families are able to be lifted when one person gets that high school diploma and they go to work. Then the rest of the family sees the value of work and education. And it is just wonderful. And we all cry at every graduation.
I was going to say, I've been to those graduations, and to
Yes.
walk across that stage
Yes.
means so much to those
Yes,
people.
it does, because they've been told, oh, you're not going to do anything. Many of them have been. Oh, you're not going to do anything. I know you're not going to do this. You don't need to go over there, or you're wasting your time, And they go through the program, and I tell them, I said, now, you make sure that you invite the ones who were talking against you and discouraging you. You make sure you send them an invitation, because you want them sitting in the front row so that you can smile and wink at them as you walk by and just say, I did it. I did it. So it is a wonderful experience for all of us. It's so rewarding because you know that you are lifting families, you're building families as far as income and self-esteem and self-respect, and you're building the community because these people are able to earn more money, spend more money, buy homes, buy other kinds of things, and then be an example for their children.
We touched on the elections in 2020.
Yeah.
Beyond the Lucas success, your Democratic Party just went through the roof this year.
Oh, yeah.
You supported, I'm sure, all the candidates.
I supported now President Biden and, of course, Vice President Kamala Harris. I supported the two candidates who were running for the Senate, and we were very, very just elated that the two of them, Ossoff and Warnock, were elected. And I think you're going to see a different direction in a lot of areas. There are a lot of families that need help, and I think that people don't want a handout. They just want to be able to gain the skills that they need so they can earn it for themselves. They just don't want impediments put in their way. And I just feel like the folks who were elected have that mindset that they say, okay, we're going to give you the support that you need, support you in your educational endeavors, support you while you're unemployed, help you a little bit there. We're going to make sure that your families don't starve while you're trying to get a job and while our country is in flux. That's the kind of help that folks need, just a little. And then from there, they'll make it on their own. They just need a little help now. And I think the change in government is going to make that difference. And families, you're going to see families prosper. I think you're going to see people who feel better about themselves and people who get along better, because some of the stress will be taken off of families. We've frankly been under stress all of 2020. And so it's no wonder we've had people who have gone at each other during 2020, because you let stress out in different ways. And one of those ways is through being irritable as far as other folks.
We've had that murder rate last year, which was a record.
Yes, we did.
Everywhere it seems like.
Yeah,
higher.
everybody's in. You had to change your normal activities. There were stressful situations. You were scared about getting sick. You were scared about your job. You were scared about, your family. Just imagine those people who had loved ones in nursing homes where you couldn't see them. When my husband was in the hospital that week, I could not see him. Nobody could see him. We communicated by phone, and it is the worst feeling for you to be told, well, you can't go in with them and you won't be able to see them until they roll them out.
Some people have been doing that since March.
Yes, and that is terrible. That is stress. And when people are stressed out, they go after each other. That's one of those things that happens. But I think that we're in for some better days. I'm looking up. I just think there's a new spirit that's going to engender more friendships among people. And I do hope that our churches help with pushing that. But I think as we get this virus under control and people get a chance to get back and see each other face to face and interact with each other, I think this whole country is going to be better.
What a great note to end this on. Since we solved all the problems.
We did. We solved every one of them.
Well, thank you for being with us.
It's great. Thank you for the invitation.
Middle Georgia Spotlight. Thank you, folks, for joining us. I'm Ron Wildman here at WMUB TV.